Hey everyone, so today, day 3 of the listening fatigue challenge. We're about halfway through, and today is when we're going to do the deep dive. So first 2 days, we're kind of laying your foundation. What is listening fatigue and knowing when you have listening fatigue. And today we're going to work on some concrete examples of how to deal with it. And today is all about calmness. So we're going to be talking about how to defeat the anxiety that typically comes along with listening fatigue, that mental chatter that's saying, I'm not getting this, I'm not understanding, I'm going to have to spend this extra time relearning the material, or have to go and make myself look foolish by asking my coworkers all the details of the project because I didn't hear it in the first place because my brain was too far off, and zoned out or in daydream world, because it just couldn't handle that onslaught of information that you were getting, and then trying to translate everything that you didn't hear so that it made sense. So with listening fatigue, a lot of times there comes anxiety. And how do we defeat that anxiety? We help defeat that anxiety by creating a sense of internal calmness. And one of the ways we do that is by triggering the nervous system's parasympathetic system. So, a little bit of an anatomy lesson here. We have what's called this central nervous system. And then we have what's called the peripheral nervous system. So your central nervous system is your central command. This is your brain, okay? That's primary on the central nervous system. Your brain gives the orders. That's, it's your top commander in the army of your body, the CEO in the business in regards to your life. And it controls everything that your body does. The way your spinal cord is then the transmission system. So your brain can give a lot of messages, but if it's not getting to where it's supposed to be, it's not going to do your body any good. So your brain gives the orders, and then it travels through the spinal cord, and then your foot soldiers, so to speak, or the lower employees are going to take those messages out to every part of your body. So through your arms, through your chest. So if I take a breath, it's the brain that's giving the orders, traveling through the central command chain, which would be your spinal cord, and then the nerves come out and tell my lungs to breathe, tell my ribs to move, and allow me to perform the action of taking a breath. So today we're going to be focusing on the central nervous system. And what the central nervous system has, it has two parts to it. You have your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is your activity level. This is your action state. This is what puts you on alert. This is what gets you up and going. And the sympathetic nervous system is primary when you're dealing with fight or flight, which is your alarm state, which happens when you're experiencing danger, and sometimes when you're experiencing stress. This is what tells you to fight it out or flight. So running away, getting out of it, moving as fast as you can. This is what triggers your body to dump adrenaline into you and get you moving and get you to deal with the situation. But over time, that can do some wear and tear on your body. So if you're not actually facing immediate danger, you need your parasympathetic nervous system to come in there, swoop in there, and bring everybody back into a state of calmness. Calm everything down. So parasympathetic nervous system is called your rest and digest system. It is what allows you to relax. It brings you back into a state of homeostasis, which is balance. It's your breathe in and out and chill kind of system. So this would be the yogi of your nervous system, the one that's always relaxed, the calming state. When you're dealing with listening fatigue, you want to help activate your parasympathetic nervous system to bring you back into a state of calmness, allow your brain to get some rest, and not always be triggered, not be on that hyperactive, high alert state. So you want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And how do you do that? Biggest way is through activating the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it starts out in the brain as cranial nerve number 10, and then it goes down and it works its way from the brain down the front of the neck, through the heart, through the lungs, and then down, through the chest, down to the stomach, and then goes to the associated organs around in that area. When we increase what's called vagal tone in the vagus nerve, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It brings things back into balance and kind of calms everything down. And when your body is in a state of calm, when your mind is in a state of calm, it can allow your brain to focus better. And it can help you, bring more oxygen to your brain to relax and overcome a little bit of that mental fatigue and that listening fatigue that you're experiencing. So there's some interesting ways to activate the vagus nerve. The first is through breath work. Deep breathing will activate your vagus nerve. It actually may be the most efficient and effective way of activating your vagus nerve and activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm going to do a separate video just to show the breathing aspect of it. But the point is to do deep breathing, deep and slow. So that's going to be your mantra. And when you think about doing breath work, deep and slow. The other thing is, there's a lot of different breathwork styles. It doesn't really matter which one you do, as long as it's deep and slow and you're breathing in through the nose. So you can just do simple, what's called an 8 count. So you want to breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. And you want to allow your stomach to fill in with air, your diaphragm to fill in with air. You don't want to be breathing just with your chest. You want to breathe in through your belly, through your stomach, and allow that to fill in with air. So there's a few different styles. I mean, you can try the Pransana style where you close one nostril. Or you can do a few other ones. But the purpose is that you want to breathe in through your nose. And why do you want to breathe in through your nose? Because your nose filters out a lot of the pollutants. That's the purpose of your nose hairs. And it actually warms the breath. And it allows you to breathe in a little slower and not take in oxygen as quickly. But you want to do an inhale, and then you want to do an exhale, and you want the exhale to be about twice as long as the inhale. So you can do in for 4 and out through 8. It really doesn't matter the count, as long as it's not super fast, and you just want to allow yourself to calm down and just relax as you're doing this. And then you're going to repeat that maybe 10 times, just as long as it takes for you to start feeling that calmness, feeling that return of the parasympathetic nervous system being activated and everything kind of calming down. And that's why we say, take a deep breath. It'll all be fine. Why? Because deep and slow breathing activates that parasympathetic nervous system, which calms everything down, which brings more clarity and focus to the brain, which allows you to stop being overwhelmed by all the what ifs, so that I'm not going to and I can't, and may bring some more insight into your brain on how to deal with the particular situation that you're going through. So give me just a quick second. There are a few other ways to activate this vagus nerve. Some very rather interesting ways, some of them. The biggest one though, and the simplest one really, is that deep breathing, because you can do it anywhere. It doesn't require any external tools or anything else that you need. It's just taking a breath. And that's really going to be your biggest way. Is you can look into different breathing styles. There's a lot of different breathwork styles. If you want, you can look into meditation or yoga, which will go along, a lot of times will go along with it. But yeah, doing the breath work is the biggest way, the easiest way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So a couple other ways to activate that vagus nerve is going to be splashing your face with cold water. For some reason, cold water activates the vagus nerve, especially on the face, because it is close to where the vagus nerve starts. And so face and neck, cold water will help activate that vagus nerve and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Humming, speaking as I'm doing now. I'm not so sure if it will help with what's called stage fright speaking, but you can experience that sometimes, like when you're standing there and you're about to do some public speaking and you feel really nervous and anxious, and then you start speaking, and for some reason all those fears kind of melt away and you get more comfortable. Part of that may be because speaking actually activates that vagus nerve. It's going to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and make you feel more calm. So speaking, singing, anything really with the vocal cords, meditation goes along with the breath work, and even balancing the gut microbiome, because as we found out, the gut is the second brain, and it does play a big role in anxiety and depression. If our gut is not in balance, a lot of times our brain is not in balance. And how do we treat the gut microbiome? It is through eating the right kind of bacteria, balancing the bacteria that's in the stomach. Your stomach has both good and bad bacteria. We're actually mostly made up of bacteria, which seems interesting, especially a lot of us, live in a germaphobe culture where we want to clean everything, and there's antibacterial wipes everywhere, especially now with what's going on. But we are made up of bacteria, mainly in the stomach. So, and we want to make sure that we have good bacteria more than bad bacteria. So you can do that through eating probiotics, fermented foods. It can be yogurt, but it doesn't have to be. You can ferment vegetables. If you want to look into like Korean and Asian cooking, kimchi, sauerkraut is German. That's a shout out for Nadia there if you're listening, because she is German. But yeah, so doing kimchi, soy. Okay, wine and beer are fermented, but always do that in moderation. Don't be like, oh yeah, I'm getting my probiotics today. Well, do that in moderation. But yeah, eating fermented foods. If you are in an area with where the soil is clean, the water is clean, you can eat, and you don't have any pesticides on your food, then maybe even getting something straight out of a garden. The soil can provide with a little bit of the good bacteria, but you want to do probiotics. You can do yogurt, but you don't, like I said, you don't have to. But you want to do probiotics and some fermented foods. Almost every culture has it. So where you can explore new foods, I love exploring different foods from different cultures. That's a big thing with me. But yes, doing fermented foods, avoiding a lot of sugar, or just even taking a break from the sugar to help balance out that gut microbiome, avoiding foods with pesticides, and that will help balance your gut microbiome, which in turn will help activate the vagus nervous system, or I should really say keeping it in balance, keeping it at the right tone, and making sure that you're not dealing with an overactive sympathetic nervous system and activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So these are just some suggestions on how to create calmness. I use this a lot in the school because I had a really, really, really bad test anxiety. I mean, really, like my mind would go haywire in the moment, in the period before my exam or my test. I was always worrying. And so once I started working on it, then I wasn't so nervous. But yeah, that pre-test anxiety was a killer for me. So learning how to breathe in, breathe out, do the breath work, getting around, getting moving, and doing other things that activated my parasympathetic nervous system did help me a lot when dealing with test anxiety, and might have helped improve my grade scores. So yeah, so homework today, try some of these, especially the breath work. It's very easy to do. You just want to do a simple in, out, 4 count in, 8 count out, long, deep, and slow. Make sure your belly is expanding, and then on the inhale, and then deflating on the exhale. I usually do a pattern of breathing in and let the sides of my stomach expand, and then the front of the belly expand, and then my chest lastly. And then when I exhale, start with the chest, let that deflate first, and then you move on to your stomach. So yeah, try the breath work today. See if it helps, especially if you're in more of a high pressure situation today, and you're also having to listen a lot at the same time. Try doing the breath work, and you can try some of the other techniques as well. I'm not going to sing for you. I've been told I love to sing, but I've been told that's not where my next career, my future career is not in singing. So I will spare you on that. But you can try humming, you can try singing, splashing the cold water, doing any of those to help activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So yeah, go ahead and try that. If you want to put a video up, you can do that. You can even sing if you want, and if you think anybody else will want to hear it. So I'll talk to you all later. And day 4, we're going to go even more in depth. All right.